So we're here on Daf Mem Gimel Amid Beis. It's a pretty short daf. And the Gemara we got up to is who Mosiv La v'hu Meshani La. And Rabbi Abba was the one who raised this kasha, and he himself is going to be miyashiv this kasha, that you can explain Rabbi Yossi that Eino Chinami, it's true. Rabbi Yochanan is absolutely correct that Hefker is Eino Yotze Mishus Baila Mishus Hamafkir Ad Sheyizku Bo Acher. Nevertheless, in the case of Kadam Hefker Leneder, then the mudar is mutter. And now we're going to go into more of a psychological analysis, sort of like what I call an umdana, to understand the following. That kol hanoder ain't daito al masha hifkir. So notice the emphasis on daito. We're doing a psychological analysis of the mindset of the madir. And he's saying that in a case of Kodam Hefkero Lenidro, when the madir gets around to make the neder and prohibit his possessions on the mudar, he doesn't have in mind that which he was mafkir. Even though technically it's still his. He owns it until somebody else is zoch in it. But nevertheless, he doesn't have the mindset when he takes the neder subsequent to the hefker that he wants to include that which he was mafkir, because that's out of his mind. In his mind, he's already given up on. So basically what the Gemara is saying is that hefker, according to Rabbi Yossi, has two dimensions to it. There's what we call siluk bailus, and then there's hotza mirshus habailus. Siluk bailus means I'm no longer claiming ownership on it. Anyone can take it. But then you have to be mafkia bailus. It's not enough to be masalik bailus, because siluk means like you walk away from it. But that's not enough to create a hakno. Mosiv Rava Mibraisa. There's another brisa that says the following: Shchid me Rasha Kosev b'tzavaso, Eskol nechasim l'shnei anoshim. He gave away all his nechasim on his deathbed, and Baruch Hashem he survived it, to two different people. Now the Ran is going to have a different girsa. They're two different avodim, but now we're going to our girsa. Two different people. And what was the way he gave it away? B'ofen kazeh. He said miktsasam l'rishon, and kulon, the balance, l'sheni. So he gave part of his nechasim to the rishon. That's called a matna shchimra, kiksuvim umesurim dami. The amir itself clinches the kinyan in an absolute unconditional way. But now he gave away all of his possessions to the sheni. Does that mean that he changed his mind? And does he have the ability to change his mind? And the Bryce establishes rishon kana, sheni lo kana. That the kinyan of matna shchimra to the first guy, since he only gave away part of his nechasim, is absolutely irreversible. But as far as the sheni is concerned, lo kana. He can't be choser from the rishon, but the sheni's kinyan is not a kinyan. Why? Because technically, according to the formulation of his matana, he gave away all his nechasim. And when a person gives away all his nechasim, then he does it on the condition, on the understanding that he's not going to survive. But if he survives, then he doesn't want it. So it's like a built-in umdan of Tanai that if I survive, then this kinyan is invalid. And that's because he said, kulam l'sheni. As far as the Rishon is concerned, he gave miktsasan. And that's matna shchibira, kiksum miksum dari. It's like a matnas bari, and there's no chazor. What do we see from this brisa, says Rava? And there's a real subtlety here in what Rava wants to derive. We see here that a shchimira who's machalik, he gives out all his nechasim, but he gives mixas lezeh, that if he becomes healthy, normally the halacha is he can be choser both from his nesina, but yet the Brisa insists that he cannot be choser both from the nesina rishona. So what do we prove from this? And we're going to make the following analogy, says Rava, and this is all explained at great length in the Ran and the Achronim, that just like when he gives to the sheni, his das is on what he already gave to the Rishon. And that's why, since he has das on what he gave to the Rishon, when he says Kul L'Sheni, he really had in mind to give away everything. And that's why Yochalatzabo, that's why Im Hivri, Lokana, Sheni Lokana. So obviously he's building on his das of what he already gave to the Rishon. And the Gemara says Rava says if we apply the same logic to the Madir and the Mudar, we're going to say that the das is on what he gave before, which means what he used mafkir before. So when a person moves forward, we assume his das is predicated on what he did backwards, what he did beforehand. Or in the Girsa of the Ran, it's a little bit different. Rava quotes a brisa that says Miktsasa l'Rishon, and then V'kulon l'Sheni. The first Rishon is the Eved, and then the second one is the second Eved. And the brisa establishes that the Rishon lo kana, the Rishon makes no kinyan whatsoever. Lo al atzmo, meaning lotzis lecherus, v'kolshke lo kanes anichosin. Why? Because since the Adon left something for himself, miktsas min anichosin, and he wasn't mefarish, he didn't explicate exactly what he's leaving for himself, and it's possible that he had kavanah to be mishar liatzmo the eved, and not to be mishacher the eved, is therefore, since it's not clear that he's being mishacher the eved is not free, and if he's not free, kamashkona eved kona rabo, therefore the eved cannot be zochin the nechasim. But when we get to the eved hasheni, who received all his nechasim, Zacha, in other words, he gave the Eved Hasheni even Atzmo, the Eved himself, to be Meshacher es Avduso. And therefore, since the Adon gave him all his Nechosim without leaving anything, then we assume that even the Eved is included in that Hefker, and then that Hafkos Kinyono, and therefore he's Meshacher es Eved. And L'shtabed Barishon, and yet the second Eved can now, insofar as he's kona all the nechasim, he's kona even the first Eved, and he can be mishabed in the Eved. But again, what do we see from this brisa of Rava in the Girsa of the Ran? That the kavan of the Adon was to give even that which he already gave, which means he's giving the second Eved even the first Eved. And if we apply that to the Madir as Chavero, then his das is also on what he already was mafkir in the past. Elama Rava, therefore, says Rava, even Rabbi Yossi holds that Mikra Din, the Mudar, is allowed to be Zocher from that which the Madir was mafkir. Why? Because even according to Rabbi Yossi, Hefker leaves the Rishus of the Mafker even before someone else is Zocher in the Hefker. Vainu Taimus, if you ask me now, what is the reasoning to Rabbi Yossi who says that it's also on the Mudar to be Zocher in that which the Madir was already Mafkir? And the answer is Gzeira Mishum Matnas Beis Chora. The whole issue is a Gzeira because of Matnas Beis Choron. And that means when the Madir was Mefurash, he said explicitly that his kavan is to give a matana to someone else only in order that the Mudar will be able to be nene from it. So he's not being miskaven at all to be motzi mershuso. In such a case where he's only giving a fake matana, which looks like a matana, it's a fig leaf of a matana. It resembles a matana, but he really doesn't want to give it away. He's only just looking for a way of circumventing the Neder. That matana is not chal, and the mudar is not allowed to have hana from it. And the same din applies to hefker when a person explicitly says that I have kavana in order the mudar should be nene from this hefker. The hefker is not chal, and therefore the Rabbanan instituted gzeira to prohibit the mudar from getting an hana from the hefker, even if the mafkir said explicitly he wants to be mafkirid so that the mudar can get hana. Tanya, we learned in a brayso, mafkir es sadeu kol shlosha yomim yochel lachzbo. The Rabbana made a separate takana, allowing a mafkir 3 days to mull over and think over whether he wants the hefker to be chal, and therefore he can be chozerbo and null and void the hefker within the first 72 hours. Mikan v'elech, after 3 days, ein yochel lachzbo. Even if no one has been zocha yet, it doesn't matter. It still remains hefker. He can be the first one to be zocha in it, but it is hefker, and therefore it's poter min ha'maisa, because we have a din that hefker is poter min ha'mas. So Mirza Hashem, tomorrow we'll continue on Daf Mem Dalid for tomorrow's Daf, and thank you very much.